All right. Hi, everybody. This is the performance measurement training for the Iowa College AmeriCorps program. I'm going to go ahead and dive into this. So what we're going to talk about today are just going to do a quick review of the logic model and the theory of change. So for those of you who have been with since the orientation, it's just a bit of a review, and I'll go over that pretty quickly. But just know that we're going to talk about that again. Then we're going to talk about all the different performance measure categories. We have our national performance measures. Those are the things that we report on the success of this grant. Then we have volunteer measures, capacity measures, beneficiary served measures, member measures, things that we measure about our specific members serving the program. And then lastly, what does reporting look like for this program? If you have questions throughout, please let me know, and we're happy to answer them. So this program's theory of change, since we're a capacity building program, the problem that we're trying to address is trying to improve the capacity of nonprofits through using these AmeriCorps positions. And we see us doing it in one of two ways. We have campus-based positions, then we have community-based positions. So if you have members who are primarily serving on campus, so this is most of our full-time members, a lot of our part-time members, they're serving on campus to build the capacity of that campus to serve the community in some way. For our community-based positions, those are where we have AmeriCorps members, most of which are at that part-time level, who are out in the community serving directly at nonprofits, doing a variety of different things. What we're hoping to accomplish is in this program, so for our campus-based positions on the output side of things, we want to track and count the number of campuses who have completed the Civic Action Plan. So if you're a campus who has a Civic Action Plan, we've already counted you for that, and you're contributing to our goal of 12. If you're a campus who doesn't have one, we hope that you're using your ICAP members to help you to achieve that in some way. And then when you file that plan with us, then we'll add you to that output and increase that by 1. On the outcome side of things, so if you're a campus who is actively developing your Civic Action Plan, you don't have to worry about the outcomes process at all. But if you're a campus that already has a plan and you're implementing that plan right now, what we're tracking with this program is just we're monitoring the success that you're having. So we're not actually looking for, are you achieving anything, or are you achieving so much, but rather it's just asking you, how are things going? And all we have to do is just kind of monitor that. We hope that you're achieving things. We hope that your AmeriCorps members are helping you to do great things on campus and in the community, but it's not a requirement that you do in order for us to count it for this measure. And our goal is just to have 8 campuses that we're monitoring that. We have 15 campuses that we're working with this year, so I think we'll get there, and we'll totally beat that outcome, which is really exciting. Long term, what we're hoping to accomplish with this program is to improve the capacity of either organizations in the community or beneficiaries and people's lives in our community, trying to ultimately solve problems in our community through this program. So for our members who are serving in community-based positions, what we're counting for that one are the number of organizations who are receiving some sort of support. That's the output, is just the count of organizations. On the outcome side of things, we're looking at understanding what was the change that may have occurred. And as I talked about in the orientation, the language that we have for that outcome is likely going to change. Right now we're doing and completing a kind of a needs assessment with community-based organizations and understanding how they partner with higher education, what are some of the unique challenges that they're experiencing, what are some of the unique successes that they have in front of them, and what does that look like, and what are the things that we can learn from that. So when I say that's going to change, what it's likely going to look like is more of a measurement of the partnership. How is the partnership set up? With the idea being that if the partnership was set up successfully, then the campus will, or the member will be in a good position, and they'll be able to accomplish great things, and the nonprofit will be able to benefit from that ultimately. And as a result of that benefit, they'll be able to improve their capacity and then serve either beneficiaries in a better way or more beneficiaries in the long run. So we're just going to kind of dive into things. Our national performance measures. So these are the Civic Action Plans. What we have for that, so the output for that, again, that's our goal is 12. Our instrument is collecting that information through a pre-survey, but that's built into the member position description process. So you don't have to complete an extra step. You're already doing that as you're completing those member position descriptions. So it's kind of baked into the process of the program. On the outcome side of things, so this is where if you're implementing your civic action plan and we're asking you to report back to us on how that's going, our instrument is a post survey. So you're going to complete that after the AmeriCorps members have done a line share of their service, and it's completed by the host site, by the campus that's receiving that benefit. So if you have members serving on your campus, if you have a civic action plan, we want you to complete this post survey and just let us know how those AmeriCorps members are really contributing towards success of your plan. That's going to be open beginning in about April, and it's going to close in about October. We're just going to have it open for a long time span and give you some time to answer the questions, collect information, and respond to that in a way that you feel is appropriate. So just know that that's kind of coming down the pipeline. And we'll have additional trainings and support around that. One thing I will mention is that in the host site agreement, we put in a firm deadline of, I think, June 28th, 2019. We're not going to enforce that. If you feel like you want us to amend our agreement with you to better reflect that in the host site agreement, I'm more than happy to do that. Just let me know and we'll move forward with that process very quickly. In the area of volunteer measures, these are the three things, well, three big things, and then there's kind of subgroupings within there, but we're looking to count, we're asking you to count the number of recruited volunteers, the number of managed volunteers, and then the hours served by recruited and managed volunteers. Within each of those recruited volunteers, there's also episodic and ongoing, and I'll talk about definitions here in a little bit, but just know that we're asking you to record just the numeric number of those things, or report the numeric number of those things to us. We don't need volunteer names or information or anything like that, but that's what we need to collect in order to report for this program. So when it comes to how are these things defined, one thing I want to make absolutely clear is that you have to count either a volunteer as either a recruited or a managed volunteer. You can't do both. And also that count has to be unduplicated. And the definitions, these are the definitions that CNCS gives. So recruit, volunteer, enlisted, or enroll as a direct result of an intentional effort to do so. I think the clearest way to think about this one is that if you are recruiting individuals to volunteer and you just ask someone to volunteer for an event, a day of service event for an agency, and you get them and they say, okay, I'll sign up, and that's the end of that relationship, then they're a recruited volunteer. For managed volunteers, it's kind of anything else. So if you have an AmeriCorps member who says, you know, hey Ryan, I really want you to serve on this day of service project. Can you be there? Ryan says, hey, I can be there. And then you say, all right, show up on this day, and then I'm there on that day, and then I'm helping to coordinate that event. I'm helping to maybe train Ryan on what he needs to do for that day. I'm doing any sort of other thing involved with that service project. Then they're a managed volunteer. So really recruited is just that relationship ends after I ask them to go to this thing. So maybe they don't even show up for that volunteer opportunity. Ask Ryan to show up for the day of service thing, and he says, oh, okay, puts his name down, but doesn't actually show up for it. He's still a recruited volunteer. So within each of those recruited and managed, there's also the definitions of episodic and ongoing volunteers. Episodics are individuals who volunteer sporadically for a service site. They may include one or several service projects at a variety of organizations. So kind of I'm doing a day of service event over here. I'm doing another day of service event over here, and that's kind of it. Ongoing volunteers are individuals who are providing uninterrupted service for one specific service project or organization. Those are really broad definitions, but if you're running into problems with defining them locally, please let us know. But it's more of being consistent with how you're defining those locally and applying that definition as consistently as possible. The next big section is in capacity measures. So our outputs here, this is what I was talking about with organizations for those community-based positions. So the number of organizations receiving capacity building support. We collect that information through the member position descriptions. On there, you tell us the name of the organization, and that's what we use to collect and document those numbers, and hopefully we get to the goal of 25. For the outcome in this one, and this is one that I said it was very likely going to change. We're going to have some sort of survey instrument, likely a post-survey instrument. Again, we're working with our researcher to identify what that might actually look like, and she's going to provide us with some recommendations, and we're going to figure out what we can actually do with the program and what makes the most sense, what's effective, and I would say what's realistic and what do we have the capacity to do. We will involve you in that process to the extent that you're really interested in doing that. So if you want to help us disseminate the survey, we're more than welcome to work with you on that process. If you want us to do it entirely, we're happy to do that. If you want members to complete this survey, then we will work with members. We really want to make this work as effectively as possible. The next big section of information that we're asking you to collect and performance measures is under Beneficiary Served. Here we do say that estimates are allowed, and I'll also point out, and this is true for just about all these measures, is that if you're not doing anything in this area, you can certainly feel free to enter in 0. So if you have students who have nothing to do with recruiting volunteers or managing volunteers, or ICAP members that are in those positions, feel free to put in a 0. It doesn't make sense for you to report anything in there. This is about quality, not quantity, so just know that that's also something that CNCS values very importantly. And that certainly includes in this beneficiary served measures. You may not know someone is a veteran family member. You may not know someone is an active duty military member or something like that. Any of these things. If you don't know and you're not asking as part of some process, you can certainly put in 0. If let's say you're doing a service project that is entirely focused on, or you have a student who's doing a service project that's focused on veterans or veteran family members, then we're asking you to report on that. In the area for member measures, this is really information about the members that are serving in the project. So if you happen to have any of our AmeriCorps members are veterans serving in this program, CNCS would like to know that. We also want to know the number of civic engagement trainings, lessons, or reflection sessions that are delivered per member. So our program goal is to have an average of 3 of those per member, and we do collect that information. You can document that on the member training certification form. Someone who goes to the Iowa Civic Action Academy is totally going to blow that number out of the water. So we do tons of civic engagement training in there and reflections throughout that. So that certainly is an opportunity as well. Members who are participating in disaster service projects. So if, unfortunately, if there's a disaster that occurs in your city or town or wherever you are, you can certainly have members support that. Many campuses, especially if there's a flood or a tornado in the area, can help out with disaster recovery. And AmeriCorps just wants to know the number of members who are participating in those sorts of projects, helping out in their community in that capacity. And that's the same thing with local disasters to which AmeriCorps members have responded. So just the number of disasters. So if you have 1 flood that occurs in your community, then obviously that would just be 1 local disaster, and maybe you have 10 members who respond to that, then you have 10 members who participated. If you have any members who are affected by that disaster, by that flooding, CNCS wants to know about that as well. Again, we don't need to know names or anything like that, just aggregate just a 1 to whatever that number might be. For most of our program, this is 0, although in Cedar Falls and in Cedar Rapids, there seems to be a lot of flooding there, and we often have members who respond to flooding response in that area. So other sorts of potpourri reporting, member experiences. So these are kind of things that we're asking you to share with us if you see anything that's particularly interesting. So if you have a member experience particularly compelling and you want us to know about that, or something that we can share out maybe a little bit more broadly, we'd love to learn about that. That's also something that happens a little bit more with our full-time members, and as Ryan is out doing site visits, that we're learning and experiencing and understanding. It's a great time for us to understand the member experience that they're having. Other sorts of beneficiaries served, there's Again, if there's a really interesting story about a beneficiary served within this program, that's always great to learn about and something that we can report to our funders and let them know the true impact that this program is having. Anything around day of service events, so that way we know and we can talk about and talk confidently about the ways that you're using those day of service dollars to support your community and your campus community. Any sort of accolades or awards that members might receive. You know, certainly Iowa Campus Compact, we have our Engaged Campus Awards, and we love to recognize AmeriCorps members as part of that. But if they're receiving any other sorts of accolades or awards, it always feels like every year we at least have one of our AmeriCorps members that goes on to receive a Fulbright scholarship. Those sorts of things are really great to recognize, or other things that might be happening, and we want to be able to celebrate that along with you. And then lastly, events, programs, projects that demonstrate a deep impact. If you feel like you have a key event, or maybe your program overall, or maybe a specific member project that is demonstrating a deep impact and it's occurring in your community, let us know. We want to be able, again, we want to be able to celebrate that with you and recognize that, and let our funders know that, you know, we are doing things not just with a breadth in mind, because we are a very large program, but we also are making significant and substantial impacts there locally. So we want to let them know, so that way they feel even more and more confident about the things that we're doing. So here are the program deadlines for the performance measures. I included the Civic Action Plan report. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I said that we're not going to enforce that deadline, and it's going to be more of an open window time, so you can start in about April and in about October. All that information is going to be finalized here in the next couple of weeks, and we'll send that out once we have it and it's available to you all. One thing I want to mention is that on the program website, we do have a member form that does help to collect all this information. So if you have if you want to work with your members and they can collect this numeric information, number of recruited volunteers, number of managed volunteers, those sorts of things. If you want them to collect that for you, they can go. You can go ahead and hand them this form, and they'll do it. And you can kind of see this is what the form looks like. It also has their name and host site written on there, so they can enter that and help you kind of track that information. It also has all the definitions that I mentioned earlier, so that way they have a little bit more and clearer understanding of what it looks like. I'm going to copy and paste this link right into the chat box, but you can find that on the program website. It's right on the first page, and you can take that and start tracking and have your members track that information for you, if that's of use to you. Finally, just our next trainings are available. We have tomorrow we have one on timekeeping, and then on Monday we have one on financial tracking and that sort of a thing. But does anybody have any questions on performance measures at this time?
Just had a quick question on the tracking those numbers across from different reporting periods. So does a recruited volunteer in the first time period get marked down as a managed volunteer in the second time period if that person has sort of moved categories? Is there a way that you want us to be careful as we're tracking across those reporting periods?
I would say just be as careful as you can, and maybe include that in like the narrative section that you saw, like a loss, or somebody went from you lost like 2 members who were recruited and now they're managed or something like that. With that said, I don't think that that's a huge effect with this program, and I don't have much of a concern with it. So
okay.
Any other questions? All right, well, I'm not hearing any, so I'm going to stop this training and put this up on the website here shortly and send out emails to everybody. But thank you for attending. If you have any questions, feel free to contact Ryan or I. We're more than happy to connect with you. So thanks, and have a great day.